What are Suave Luuk's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So one thing that I quickly want to say before I start this video, minor story spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There is a Luuk trial in-game whenever you do the story, and during that trial you can actually check his menu and check his abilities, so we do officially know what his kit does already, which means that I have a stronger basis to go on when it comes to making this pros and cons, which is nice. Just wanted to say that yes, we do in fact have his kit in-game already, and we have already been able to try him out before. One thing that I'm going to start with is that he is easily going to end up becoming the new best Spectro DPS. I have no doubt about this in my mind. Previously, the character that held that station would be Zani. However, that character is extremely expensive to invest into, and the damage baseline is just higher now. The double Toon Break core is extremely strong, and since we already know Luuk's kit, we're aware that this is going to be a character centric around Toon Break. So because of that, we know that the double Toon Break core is going to have an excellent amount of synergy with this guy, which is already amazing on its own considering how inherently broken those characters are, but considering how Luuk's kit features Toon Break in it, he's going to be especially nice with those two. So all around, I expect him to easily become the new best Spectro DPS in the game, because that's another bottleneck of Zani's. She cannot use the double Toon Break core because she's a negative status character. Another thing that I should add is that he is very likely to end up being budget friendly. If you read his kit, you're going to notice that everything, including his liberation, counts as basic attack damage, so he is primarily a basic attack damage dealer when it comes to his damage type. Which, yes, does mean that the standard gauntlets are likely to be very good on him. So because of this, he's going to be rather budget friendly, because not only are you going to be able to use the standard gauntlets on him, and they are likely to be pretty decent on him, since they seem to be designed with him in mind, you're also going to be able to use Sanhua, the return of Sanhua in the meta. Finally, she's back. Mortefi was definitely overshadowing her there for a while. So this means that Luuk is going to have access to a free 4-star as a potential very strong option, and he's also likely going to be very good with the standard gauntlets. So if you're a beginner player, then Luuk is going to be an excellent pickup for you, because this is a character that's going to work excellently with a free 4-star teammate. And considering how universal Linny is, maybe you just want to use that character elsewhere. So all around, this just ends up being a great deal. And whenever you're playing Double Pawn Matrix, if your Aemeath takes up Linny, keep in mind that there are 2 Mornier charges. You're still going to be able to use Mornier for your Luuk, and then also use Sanhua, making him ideal for pushing scores in that game mode. So all around, a very free-to-play friendly unit. And another thing is that he is cheaper than Zani. Now, I will admit, while that's not necessarily a high bar to reach because she's a negative status character, and Zani in particular has a pretty vile case because she can't really be saved by Chisa like Cardathea, well, the issue is made a little worse for Zani when you realize that Luuk is so budget friendly and he can use a free 4-star and get by just fine. Now, I will add that I myself have an S1R1 Zani and I use the character a lot. I really like the character, but goodness me, she is not budget friendly like at all. If you are looking for an accessible Spectro DPS, please just go for Luuk instead. He is going to be a far better option for you. Now, I will say if you're perfectly happy with your Zani, I don't necessarily think you need to upgrade. She's still a very strong DPS, especially if you're managing to get 3 Nightfalls on her. But if you haven't already invested into that character and you're looking at things from a value perspective, you just get way more bang for your astrite by going for Luuk instead, because you don't need as many components to get him hitting the ground running, and he's all around just going to be so much more accessible from the get-go. Everybody has a Sanhua on their account. So this basically only further sweetens the deal for Luuk. Another thing that I'm actually going to count as a positive is that he technically doesn't have his best in slot support yet. Sure, you're going to likely play him with a double Toon Break core in order to form his best in slot team, because we already know that he is going to be a Toon-centric DPS. However, I would like to point something out. He does basic attack damage primarily. What does Linny's outro buff? Liberation damage. Even Luuk's own liberation counts as basic attack damage. So with this in mind, it is not unlikely that Luuk might actually get a buffer that is more tailored to him instead. So if he's already going to be strong on release, then imagine how much stronger he's going to get and the potential he has with another dedicated teammate. I do believe that Mornier is probably going to remain as his best 3rd slot teammate, simply because I do believe that she is going to remain as the generalist for all Toon Break characters, and also just for all characters in general, but especially for Toon Break characters. But for the second slot, it seems like there is still a window open there. Now, maybe they don't address that, and maybe Linny is just going to remain as his best in slot. That's not unlikely, considering that it's likely that that's already going to be very good for him. But even so, the potential for the character to be even better isn't actually all that far-fetched. Another thing that I should mention is that he has aerial-based combat, and this is just going to be quite nice whenever you're fighting more mobile enemies, and it's pretty much the same song and dance with any other character that tends to be pretty dynamic when it comes to their movement. I also just personally think that characters that fight primarily in the air tend to be really fun, so if you're interested in that, then while that is definitely more of a subjective point, he's got that going for him too. Now, the really nice thing with Luuk is that I don't really consider his cons to be major deal breakers, because, to be honest, they're things that can very easily be justified or circumvented. The first one is that he takes Aemeath's current best in slot team if you want to play Luuk's own best in slot team, which can be very awkward if you're trying to play them both in the same game mode at the same time. Well, I actually don't think this is really going to be much of a problem. First of all, Aemeath has a second incomplete team, so if you're planning to pull for that team, then there you go, problem has already been solved. We just have to wait for Aemeath to get our Fusion Burst team. But let's say you're not going to invest into that team. What then? Sanhua already exists. But what if you're perhaps concerned that you're not able to give Mornye to your Luuk? Well, honestly, Aemeath is going to be just fine with Shorekeeper. Linny Shorekeeper is still an extremely strong team for her. Even if it's not her absolute best in slot, it is still on par with some of the best TOA DPSs in the game right now. So honestly, there are plenty of ways that you can play both of these units at the same time, no matter what the game mode is. So I wouldn't necessarily worry if you don't know what you're gonna do about your teammate situation, because thankfully, Luuk being a basic attack damage dealer does a lot of work for his free-to-play friendliness. And also, Aemeath's just a character that has plenty of options in general. If you have Lupa, then that's another problem solved, because then you're easily able to just build around Fusion and then free up all of your Toon teammates for Luuk. And like I said, maybe Luuk gets his own dedicated support in the future, because he technically does have that little missing link. So yes, he does technically take Aemeath's best in slot team, but this seriously isn't going to be a problem in DPM. In fact, both of them are going to be able to use Mornye there. This isn't going to be a problem in TOA, and this isn't going to be a problem in Whimpering Wastes or basically any game mode. This more so just sucks if you're trying to get the most optimal clears possible, or if you want to push the best scores possible for both characters. But like I said, Aemeath currently has a second incomplete team, which I'm sure we will eventually see fully realized. So I wouldn't really say this is necessarily a deal breaker. And another thing I also want to add is that most people are going to have a third team in Wuthering Waves. This is the kind of game where you want to have ideally at least 4 teams or so. 3 is enough, but with the recent addition of DPM, you do want 4 if you want all rewards out of it. So most people are going to be aiming to have multiple teams built anyway, so if for whatever reason you're unable to use both Toon DPSs at once, that's fine. One might end up being better than the other at some given moment. Aemeath might be better if the content currently does not favor Spectro, and Luuk for vice versa, if Fusion is not currently favored. Though granted, Aemeath is really strong, so she can probably just brute force it, but you get the point that I'm trying to make here. The other con that I want to list is just kind of nonsensical because I feel like it's very easily justifiable with DPM, and that's just that he's a weaker option for a Toon Break DPS. Yes, he's looking to be really good right now, but why would that matter when Aemeath already exists, and if you've already got her, well then, there you go, you don't really need another Toon Break DPS. She is ridiculously strong. But this is a silly point, simply because, once again, DPM is a game mode that exists. And if you're already getting all of the Astrites out of it, and you don't really care about the other rewards that you can get out of it, then okay, maybe you just don't want the weaker Toon Break DPS. That's fine. But even so, Luuk is still an extremely good deal for basically any account. He's going to be good with Sanhua. And just because he's weaker than Aemeath doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to be useful in his own right, because he's a different attribute. So if Fusion isn't favored, then once again, you can just use your Luuk instead. And you're very easily able to split up their supports, so that both of them can still have really strong competent teams and clear very nicely. So all around, I think this is a really nice looking, well-balanced character at the minute. It's very nice that we've been able to see his kit in-game already. I'm very happy that Kuro put in that little trial. But from what I'm seeing, this is just a really good DPS in general. If you need a strong damage dealer, if you want a good Spectro DPS or just anything like that, this is a good character to go for. He's gonna be great. And I don't necessarily mean he's just gonna be good. No, this guy's going to be, like, actually meta. Pretty much the only thing that's doing a disservice to him is the fact that he's releasing in the Aemeath patch, which is a bit unfortunate, because he's definitely going to be overshadowed by her, especially because she's this patch's main push. But even so, if you're interested in Luuk, don't feel like he's being mistreated or that his kit isn't being served justice, because to be honest, this character looks really good. I actually don't think this looks bad at all. I'm personally really excited to pull for him, and I have plenty of astrites saved up, so that I can hopefully get him. Here's hoping for the best. Hopefully this video is able to tell you Luuk's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and oh boy, I just cannot wait to get him. We are not far away from him now. We are not far away.